This is Hot Mic with Dom Izzo, presented by Northwestern Mutual.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hour 2, ready to rock and roll here on a Hump Day Wednesday. I mentioned off the top of the show, we're getting to that part of the year where I know school's right around the corner because obviously we got football ready to go. High school games start Friday. But the next event that's big on our local calendar starts tomorrow, which was always the signal like, all right, the Vikes aren't far away. It's time to rock. And that's the Bobcat Open, which returns to Fargo at Rose Creek Golf Course. It tees off tomorrow, goes through Saturday, the 62nd edition with some just tremendous players, both collegiate and professional in the area. And the guy who has ran it forever, as far as I've known, I've been here 20 years. It's the only guy I know who does it, is Mark Johnson, who joins us here this morning. One of our favorites here. It's been too long since we had him on the show. How you been, my man?
Hey, Dom. I've been really well. Yeah, thanks for having me on. 20 years, it's our anniversary. It must have been your first year. Was my first year.
There we go. And I know it always gets hectic this time of year, but I have to ask, we talked a little bit in the break. Traditionally, it's always been Friday to Sunday. Tell us about the date change of going Thursday to Saturday.
Yeah, we're excited about that change, and it's really played out well. You know, the Dakotas Tour, which has been a professional golf tour in place since the early 80s, combined with the Asher Tour. And for those that don't follow mini tour golf, Asher Tour has a tremendous following in California, Arizona, and Nevada. Just they've done a great job with really the similar thing that the Dakotas Tours offered, and that's a place to play for these professionals that are aspiring to get on Korn Ferry Tour or PGA Tour Americas and eventually PGA Tour. So Dakotas Tour is unique in that it's a Pro-Am tour. So normally, a lot of professional tours that pros just teed up and play. This tour, they play with amateurs the first couple days, which is a unique nuance, and we've kept that tradition over the years. But we partner with the Asher Tour. Michael O'Leary is the tour director, and he brings just many years of experience. And so he looked at our schedule and he said, PGA Tour Americas, they're up in Winnipeg, I think this weekend. They're in Brainerd next week. And he said, if you modify your event a day earlier, I think you're going to find guys would stick around. They'd play that. They would, if they're in the Brainerd event, they would hop over there and play, or have an opportunity to Monday qualify. So we moved to Thursday. We'll be done Saturday. They could go play practice round in Brainerd and Monday qualify on Monday, and then hopefully get in the field there. So that move has turned out. We've got a real nice field, about 160 players, some of the best collegiate amateurs in the area, as well as just a solid professional field.
19 under was the winning score last year. Is that out there with how dry it's been? Do you foresee that happen in the next 3 days?
Yeah, we think it's going to be similar again. Rose Creek held up fantastic last year. The winning score was, a little lower than what we might see year in, year out at Fargo Country Club. But, that cut number was about the same. And even final day, some of the professionals were over par that last day. So these guys are burning it up, though. 30-some under for a 4-day event last week in Minot. We're seeing a lot of new faces professionally, and that's the impact of the Asher Tour. I think it's probably a stronger professional field than we've had in many years. So it's going to be low with no rough. The wind will be important to keep these guys a little bit honest, but we don't trick it up. We're trying to have a fair contest, and if these guys go low, they go low. That's how good they are.
Describe, Mark, the transition to Rose Creek, how that's gone. FCC obviously was a longtime host. What do you make of what Rose Creek has done and ready to do it again this weekend?
Yeah, well, they've done a great job. Rose Creek's a fun golf course to play. It's a busy facility. Matt Cook and his crew there, they've done just a tremendous job. The maintenance staff, the greens, and that's what really matters to a lot of the players. You step on the golf course, you want the ball to roll, and these greens are rolling. The thing that you're not seeing is the rough, and we just don't have the rough because they haven't had much rain this year. So, but the golf course is going to be a good test. We mix in a little bit of wind. Yeah, they might go low, but it's going to be all you want. If you get out of position to some of the hole locations with that wind, you're going to make some bogeys. So we're really excited about Rose Creek and how they set up the golf course. and how the food and beverage amenities set up out there. So it's going to be a great week.
Looks like weather's going to cooperate as well, which, granted, is par for the course, no pun intended, considering it hasn't rained all summer long. Your involvement in this, I know how much is a love affair. You're doing it for 2 decades now. What have you tried to do with the event beyond obviously changing venues to adapt with the times here in 2026?
Well, that's a good question. When I first started, there was such a large team component to this event, and that goes back, to the 80s and well before me, where really you had to be part of a company sponsor to get in this event. That's morphed more into an individual event. We certainly still have our team portion. Today's the Pro-Am out in Oxbow for the Shriners Hospital. That kind of kicks things off. And tomorrow we'll have a Pro-Am mixed in with the 3-day. But the biggest change I've seen is it's really been a stepping stone for a lot of collegiate players to kind of get their games ready to go for the fall season, see how they compete with professionals that are trying to make it playing as a living. So that's probably been the biggest change in the format of the event. But to be a part of it is something I aspired to play in when I was a kid, played in it professionally. And to be running it, when you look back, you blink and it's 20 years later. It's kind of amazing, as you're well aware.
So, people know Tom Hoagie played in this event, Dave Schultz played in this event. Who are some other names, maybe the people that follow golf have come through Fargo and played here?
Sure. I mean, Tom Lehman, of course, came through. He's an Alexandria guy. And before he made it big, I mean, he literally went from struggling on Dakota's tour to a major champion. Right? He won on the Nike tour at that time.
Yeah.
But he parlayed that into 3, 4, 5 years later, he's a major champion. It's just hard to fathom. You go from thinking about he was going to be the director of the cross country ski lodge at the University of Minnesota to a Hall of Fame career.
Wow.
So we've seen guys like Zach Johnson. Zach was a Drake guy that came up here. One year he didn't make it. He didn't make it out of the Monday qualifier.
That's
he shot
wild.
78, and they sent him a refund check. Then the next year he did well, made the cut, and then shortly after that he wins the Masters, probably within 5-6 years. So, that's how good these guys are. And another kid that comes to mind, Marcus Plunkett. His story is still being written. So his grandfather owned Plunkett's Home Furnishing in Moorhead. So if you're an old timer out there listening, you might remember Plunkett's Home Furnishing. And Marcus's dad, Dan, went to Moorhead High, played golf, and went up to University of North Dakota. Went to school up there, and I met him, or I knew they were members of Moorhead Country Club. Well, they lived on the golf course in Florida, the TPC Sawgrass, and Marcus grew up playing golf, passionate family for golf. Well, Marcus came up, played Dakota's tour, had some limited success. I'd say maybe made 50% of the cuts here over 4 or 5 years at the Bobcat. Well, I'm looking at the leaderboard at the Open Championship this year over in Scotland, and he's got himself in contention. It was really neat to see. He made the cut, and now there's a guy that he's just been out there grinding. And he was playing some DP World Tour stuff. And if you play well, and Thomas said it, if you play well at the right time and then you parlay that into some more good golf, that's how it happens for these guys. There's so many guys that can play at that level. So you have to take advantage when you have your hot streak. And it looks like a guy like Marcus Plunkett that was a 50% cut maker here, found himself in the mix at the Open Championship.
That's awesome.
That's a pretty neat story.
That's a great story. And, you live it. And I try and talk about this when we talk about, Tom, obviously, Hoagie didn't have the year he wanted to. He didn't make the FedEx Cup playoffs for the first time in a few years. And it's so fleeting, Mark, where you can have an unreal run like he had a couple years ago, or now where he didn't have a bad year, but he didn't have the year he wanted. It can go like that in golf. It's remarkable.
Right. Yeah. Nothing's guaranteed,
No.
right? I mean, maybe you get into that elite stratosphere where you won multiple majors, you're going to have exemptions for a long time. And there's always coming out of school, and they're more prepared than ever to play at that level. You're seeing some of these young guys, and they're trying to take your job. And there's no signed contracts. There's no guarantees. So you gotta play the game. And with age comes wisdom and knowledge of golf courses. But boy, that window, it can close in a hurry.
Yeah.
And I think Tom will figure it out. He'll evaluate the year, and he's not done. So there's a lot of talent coming, but Tom's a real talented guy, and he's a smart guy. He'll figure it out.
Well, you look at the other guys that aren't playing either this week in St. Louis or next week that didn't even make the playoffs. I mean, there are some big names. It's not just our guy we're following. There's some huge names on the PGA Tour that aren't part of it.
Yeah, that's right. And, I don't know if they're ever going to get it right. I think it depends upon what names are in the playoffs. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement in the playoffs. And if there are any talkers, it seems like it's the guys that missed out. And, that's maybe not the type of playoffs you want. That kind of reminds you of some ill will of NHL playoffs, and how that's handled. So I think I don't know what the answer is. I don't claim to know what the answer is. But, yeah, when you have marquee names not battling what I think most golfers feel like it's still kind of middle of the season. I know they try not to compete with the NFL season, but I think most folks want to see some golf for a while yet. To have some of your best players not involved, that I think it eliminates some of what folks tune in for.
I got to ask you how big a deal it was to have Scotty Scheffler play the 3M Open down the road. The crowds were amazing. How big a deal was that to have the number one player in the world play in Minnesota last month?
Yeah, that's huge. Hollis, the tournament director there, he's been working him for many years. And, for Scotty to do that, you can see that impact. I mean, they were talking about there were crowds that were major championship level on Thursday, or even practice rounds where there were a lot of people out there. So he brings people in, maybe not quite to the level that Tiger did, but he has that effect. And golf in Minnesota, we're in this area, we're kind of starved for seeing the stars. And when you have that opportunity, it's 3.5 hours. That's not that long a drive. Go watch best players in the world. So I'm glad he played. By all accounts, it was a great week. The superintendent there, Joe Rolstead, he was at Fargo Country Club for a number of years. And to see the condition he had that golf course in, it was absolutely perfect. And the greens were rolling. And I joked, I sent him a text. I joked if we need John Mark to go down and set some hole locations, kind of tuck those pins so those guys wouldn't go so low.
Oh, it's hard when they go 26 under par to win. It's like, what are we supposed to do when it's like mini golf out there? Last thing before we go on this weekend, you mentioned we got a great group of professionals, but the college guys is always a huge part. The amateurs is such a huge part of this. And the level of amateur golf, we talk about what the Bison golf team did this season, not to rub that in, but there's some really good local players and local teams that are going to be participating this week as well.
Yeah, we'll have a strong field. We always get a mix of a few Gophers players that come down play, or come up and play, I should say, but we'll have all the NDSU players, University of North Dakota, St. Thomas, of course, they're all fighting it out now in that same conference, Summit League. St. Thomas has been a great addition to that league. We have some University of Mary kids playing, Crookston, Augsburg, Charlie Solberg, local kid that has gone to Augsburg and is bringing some of his friends back to play. I know I'm probably forgetting some of these guys that are coming in from other schools to play, but this field on the amateur side, collegiately, is as strong as I've ever seen. And we have a few young high school players that are aspiring to get themselves noticed as well. Nice. in that recruiting scene. So we're going to have a mix of some of the best high school players in the tri-state area as well, trying to make it to the top and see if they can't get noticed and get recruited. So I'm really looking forward. We have some area high school players as well that are playing the Pauluses. It's going to be a great weekend to see who steps up, nice. Who gets it done.
When is the last time you actually played a round? I know you're a busy man. When's the last time you actually got out and played?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I played a 4-ball match with Greg McCullough, PGA legend,
yes,
Edgewood guy that now works with us here at Oxbow. We had a 4-ball match against a couple young guys. We met Greystone. So we've been playing the Minnesota PGA 4-ball since 1990, 2-ish, and we think we have the most wins in the history of that tournament. Not because we've won the tournament, because we've just the longest team that's played in it. We usually win 1 or 2 matches a year. So, anyways, we show up to the young guys. We were being outdriven by a 3-iron. This guy had 3-iron longer than we could ever driver, and it wasn't even close. And we got waxed.
Oh, man.
So we're done. Well, but that was my last round probably about 3 weeks ago.
That's pretty good. I would have guessed like a couple months, so I'm glad you're able.
No, 3 weeks ago. We're trying to play a little bit here and there. The fall, for folks, I think fall golf's the best there is. September, October, of course, are less busy weather's
Totally.
great, so.
I agree with you there. I know you're a busy man. Thanks so much for doing this. I have a great weekend, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure.
Good to see you. There he is, Mark Johnson, tournament director. The Bobcat Open gets going out at Rose Creek. Starts tomorrow. If you're a golf fan like I am, it's great to get out there and watch. You got some the talented players that have come through here, and Mark was just listing off a few of them. This is an event that's 6 decades old. That's moved around, and it's over at Rose Creek. And like I mentioned, the winning score last year was 19 under par, 63, 64, 66. That's all right for 3 days. We'll see what materializes over the next 3 days out at Rose Creek. Appreciate Mark's time. All right, we'll break. We'll get back on time here. We've got a few emails to get to. And, again, I'm going to talk about how early college football is going to start here in about 15 minutes as well. We're back on Hot Mic right after this.